Today we're taking a look at one of the newer releases from Penelope. This is their 17-year-old American Light Whiskey. Is this something that more people need to really dive into a little bit more? We're going to tackle that today here on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. Hey everybody, welcome back. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. So we're tackling a 17-year-old American Light Whiskey from Penelope. So some of the details on this, a big thanks to my buddy Joe for sharing the bottle with me and allowing me to kind of do the review for you guys today. So some of the details on this one, in terms of proof, 138.8 proof. So it's a big boy of a light whiskey. And oftentimes light whiskeys have those big proofs and everything to them. It is a 99% corn, 1% malted barley. So a lot of those American light whiskeys are oftentimes that mash bill. Again, like I mentioned, it is 17 years old, age stated, so we know the minimum age with anything blended within this is going to be 17 years old, and the MSRP on this is right around $100. So really the question today is going to be, should people be tackling a little bit more of what it is that light whiskey has to offer? That's an interesting question, and we're going to tackle a little bit with this to see whether or not this kind of holds up to maybe some of the bourbons in terms of profiles or where this is going to go. But oftentimes some American light whiskeys can be absolute monsters. So let's not waste any more time and see exactly what this one's going to give us today. Boy, so right away you do get hit with a lot of that kind of corn sweetness up front. A really nice, and I had this before Joe was over, we were kind of sipping on a little bit of this, and again, there is this heavy kind of tropical influence that it has to it. It's almost in addition to that, this bright, just citrus note that's there. It does kind of present itself a little bit from that sweetness standpoint of oftentimes what a Canadian whiskey can kind of give you with those heavy kind of sweet notes. A lot of like a vanilla buttercream to it. I mean, the proof on this thing is ridiculous. I mean, at 138.8 proof, I mean, it is a strong, heavy proof whiskey. You're getting it. Now, again, prior to doing this, I let this thing sit for about 15 minutes just to let it kind of open up a little bit more, let some of that ethanol kind of dissipate so you're not getting blown away. This isn't something or a whiskey that I'd want to open the bottle and review right away. I feel like it could be extremely hot and just not opened up enough to really let those flavors that are in that whiskey kind of develop. So this, again, as you can see, is not quite halfway down, but it does have a little bit of air and has been open for some time. And like I said, I let this sit for about 15 minutes prior to doing the review. Yeah, almost this medium or heavy, like baking spice that it has to it. Again, the proof is showing up, and it's one of those things with high proofs like this where that if it starts to become a little bit too dominant, it starts to take away a little bit of the nuances of the flavors that it has to offer. So I'm not someone that likes to always enjoy the super, super high proof stuff because I feel like it takes away a little bit of what the whiskey could be at a little bit of a lower proof. But we'll tackle that in terms of what the flavor profiles are here in just a second. Yeah, I mean, the spice factor is fantastic on this. I think you get a little bit of that more like kind of baking spice that mixes really well with that kind of heavy corn, a lot of that tropical influence that it has, a bright citrus, the oak kind of component to it. It's an interesting thing, and that's always something that's always been very intriguing or interesting to me about light whiskeys is how different they can be and really what each one can kind of offer on its own. But more importantly, let's go ahead and kind of dive into the palate and see exactly what this one's got to offer. Cheers. Boy, so what I will say about it right away is, as high proof of this is, it definitely lets you know that it's proofy, but not to the point where it's so influential in terms of it just dominating the overall flavor profile. Like I think you're picking up with some of those aged whiskeys that are in here. Again, that slight dusty or older oak profile that mixes or blends very well with like an orange vanilla creamsicle, a little bit of that tropical note that's there, some of those maybe bittersweet or baker's chocolate notes that are there. Fantastic spice. I mean, the spice factor to this is dancing all over the palate. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with, maybe not only the interpretation of the spice, but that proof that's there is allowing this thing to really kind of explode with flavors. Yeah, I love the barrel influence. I like the old, slight dustiness that it has to it. And that's one thing I've really become a little bit more aware of with the older whiskeys is how that has the ability to offer something slightly different, more unique than we get in, even whiskeys that are in that 10-year range. You don't get that older oak kind of profile. And with this thing blending or mingling really well with, again, some of the baker's chocolate, that orange kind of creamsicle, even a little hint of like a mint that's there, but the spice that it has to it is absolutely fantastic. I mean, so far it makes it maybe one of the more enjoyable, you know, almost hazmat type of whiskeys that I've had in some time. There's a lot of richness, a lot of complexity to it. So this is a really nice representation of maybe why more people shouldn't overlook what it is that light whiskeys can really offer. And again, we oftentimes will get them at really nice high ages like this, 17 years old. So you're getting those nuances of those whiskeys being in those barrels for so long and really having a chance to develop. And this one is kind of going in a very, positive direction and very, it just overall, it's very enjoyable to sip on. More mouth coating, more creamy than actually I thought it was going to be. And even going back a couple nights ago, sipping on this a little bit more, I was a little bit kind of taken back. I wasn't expecting as much from this, to be honest. And I was almost setting myself up to not enjoy it nearly as much as I do. But so far, I think it's fantastic. I mean, it does give you, all of what I had mentioned, gives you a nice kind of honey, sweet tea type notes. Like it's got a lot of going on, but fantastic spice. And again, that little bit of influence of that older oak profile really adds something significant to the overall profile to it. Yeah, it has, again, like I had mentioned, even on another whiskey I had reviewed previously. It has this, again, with that old oak, this earthiness. And sometimes that's coming across for me as almost like what you'll get from like a cognac or an armagnac, where you have that earthy kind of, blending well with the old oak. There's just something about that particular profile that's very interesting. And I think that's one of the things that's making this very much more enjoyable rather than having to just focus on the high proof that it is. This has a lot more going on besides it just being a high proof, light whiskey. So as much as I almost didn't want to like it, I really, really enjoy what this is. And I would say today for 17-year-old whiskey at 100 proof, pretty readily available. I think this maybe becomes like a buy. I think an awful lot of people will really enjoy this. Now, what I will say is I think this, again, like some other whiskeys that I've mentioned in the past, this is a whiskey that needs time. Like it needs to sit in the bottle open for some time. And as you see, maybe as this thing starts to kind of get down, it maybe really starts to shine at that point. So will you get everything I'm maybe saying off of a fresh crack? I don't know that because I've only had it, just a couple other times, and it wasn't much. But so far, what this has to offer, I think it's really starting to kind of hit its stride. It'll be interesting to see, as this bottle kind of goes down, where this bottle really kind of develops. Unfortunately, it's not mine, so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to tell you where it's going to go, but I'm sure Joe will let me know. But I think so far with what this is, It's an absolutely fantastic, fantastic 17-year-old light whiskey. So there you go. There's the from Penelope. There's their 17-year-old American Light Whiskey. I would really be interested to hear from you, your thoughts. What are your thoughts overall on American whiskey? Is this a category that maybe needs to be explored a little bit more? Introduced, maybe even talked about a little bit more, so that people are a little bit more aware of what this is. And oftentimes, light whiskeys being distilled at above 160 proof. And in used, ex-bourbon barrels, those things right there eliminating it from being a bourbon itself. But, there's a lot of these that are out there, and you can get some really interesting profiles. And I think some of the ones that Penelope have chosen for this blend are pretty spot on, pretty fantastic. So again, I'd love to hear your thoughts overall on maybe this bottle specifically, but kind of light whiskey in general. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook and Instagram, those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out that Patreon link in the description below. That down there with a lot of other great things for you as well. So with that, remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers. We'll see you next time.